Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to the Business Management 3 Revision online tutorial. I hope you can all hear me. Please confirm you can hear me. Thanks, Lauren. I'm happy you can. Yes, thank you so much. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Good evening, good evening. Thank you, Farah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Andrea is coming through as well. Okay, good evening, Andrea. How are you? Ladies and gentlemen, we met during the assignment online tutorial as well, and we did deal with all the concepts that were included within our assignment. And I do suspect strongly that your assignment was well done, and results should be out anytime now. And yes, it will be a very good thing to start off from that distinction point. Having covered chapters 1 to 5 in the assignment, we will not at all spend time on those during this revision workshop. I will touch on concepts that I deem to be of importance, and of course, yes, just to give us an overview of the module, strategic management of our business 3 module. Likely long time. Yes, that's what I will definitely do. And then we may want to start from a point of view that if we are going to go into the examination, the whole point is that we need to be confident. And that confidence is derived from preparation for the examination. I have often said, for some of you that have met me in Business Management 1, that business management is or constitutes of modules that at times are overbearing to a point where if you're not careful, you would declare them boring, you know. However, it is because you will perceive them in that way. You may approach it from a point of view where you do not appreciate the way they are structured and how they integrate within the particular module itself and then within the qualification that you do. We are marketers. We need to be able to understand how to manage the function marketing and manage the whole organization per se. In that event, that's where the importance is. And when you now understand the structure of your module, the aspect of and the essence of the task of management, planning, organizing, leading, controlling, wow, yes, that's the fundamental. And understanding that those functions are performed within those tasks are performed within the functions in the organization at each and every departmental level that you're operating within. That's it. We have had to say at some point that, because I'm still relating to the confidence that you need to walk into the examination room with, that in the event that you come across a question that you cannot relate to the textbook, as some students will want to do, who would not have spent adequate time studying for the examination, you know, use common sense. You have had an occasion to manage something in your life. See how you did manage that perspective. Try and apply it to the question. At the end of the day, you may be able to salvage some reward in terms of marks from the question. Don't study to claim. read through the textbook. If you're going to go for a distinction, you must be going through the textbook for the second time now. And when you focus on questions, you will be going through the textbook for the third time. And that is a guarantee that you walk in there confidently. And because Business Management 3 is a module that is at NQF level 7, we are applying the concepts. We are applying the concepts of strategy to given scenarios. Or we debate them, argue them, discuss them in an application inclination. As such, you would want to say, I have my theory, which I understand from the textbook, and therefore I will be able to say, how does that theory impact on real life? Yes, you would have your content, as we did say in the assignment tutorial. The content in this module is mostly revision. We have had occasion to come across most of that content in some of the modules that we have dealt with. It is probably some 30-40% of stuff that is new to us. The whole aspect is we need to be able to apply the content. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be able to walk into that examination room with the confidence it requires of you to start off well, please understand the theory that you will be dealing with. Very good starting point. And because it's application, we will look at the concept, have your theoretical foundation, and look for empirical evidence from the case study to support your assertions in terms of theory. Argue your point using information from the case study given in the examination. Be detailed, show maturity, and prove to the examiner that you are competent in strategy. That is what is required of you. And of course, yes, the way goes forward in that perspective. As we start off today, I will, hoping that that preamble does, of course, put everyone at a notion of comfortable perspective. If you haven't started studying as yet, well, I'll say don't panic. Don't panic. Plan your way through. There's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, about 10 chapters to go through. If you can do 2 chapters a week, probably yes, and 3 or so gives you 3 weeks. Yeah, you will probably be in a very good, comfortable state. We have a group forum on eLearn under the module. This group forum is very robust. We do get people discussing issues in that group forum. I also do participate in the group forum, and to an extent where, yes, benefits will be derived. There are also slides posted on the group forum, which you may use once you've gone through the textbook as an on-the-move revision facility. You may want to do that. It is quite helpful. And during your lunch hour at work, just go through the slides and see if you could identify with the concepts in that chapter. If there's a concept that you don't identify with, resort to the textbook, refer to it, expand on the concept, and that way definitely you will be able to have the concepts registered in your faculties. will be registered in your faculties in that perspective. All right. I will start off by linking or summarizing the module per se using figure 1.1 in your textbook on page 9. It gives me a very good opportunity to round off and link the first 5 chapters to what we're going to be running through today. And then, of course, yes, ladies and gentlemen, do not hesitate. If you have questions, you can type them on, and I will be throwing an eye onto that communication window, and I will pause to respond to particular questions. And in the penultimate, we may just have a peek at the October 2016 examination paper, just to see the examination style and confirm to ourselves that, nothing really stands out as an undoable challenge. If you're going to go into strategy, ladies and gentlemen, or strategic management, you are saying to yourself, the process involves 3 stages, and the 4th one is your evaluation and control, which we'll discuss later. Ehlers and Lazenby do not categorically state that the 3rd stage in the process of strategic management is your control and evaluation. They tend to present that as silent, but authors like you will indicate the 4th stage in the strategic management process, so to speak. In that event, you start off by analyzing the environment. This analysis of the environment is not the ordinary analysis that you have actually carried out in your business management 1, 2, or marketing 2. You are talking of an in-depth scanning of the environment to be able to extract all the variables that you need to be able to think at a higher level and at an integrative level in 3 dimensions, I'll emphasize. You will analyze your internal environment, understand the nature of the organization, and analyze the external environment, understand the environment within which you operate. And then, of course, having understood that, you then say to yourself, what strategic direction am I going to take? You will, of course, espouse your vision and your mission, and that gives you an idea of who you want to be and how you want to be who you want to be. The most important perspective when you are at that high level is to recognize the need for corporate governance and its interaction with strategy. Ethics, and according to the King fundamentals in those King reports 1, 2, and 3, you would want to be clear that the triple bottom line must be considered. Always consider that, yes, there are people that you deal with within and without the organization, and there is the environment within which you operate, and of course, you want to operate sustainably, carrying the organization forward for a very, very long time to outlive you that starts off the organization or that manages the organization. It should be an organism that gets on and carries on in life ad infinitum. Therefore, yes, to make a profit, to make sure that it does. That's about corporate governance. Over and above that, we also want to not talk of mere leadership. We want to be talking about strategic leadership, which is different from the leadership that we discussed in our earlier modules within business management. It is a leadership that is visionary, a leadership that is in-depth, well-rounded, and forward-looking. You have understood what you want to do. You then move on to formulating your strategy. In formulating your strategy, you are not going to reinvent the wheel. There are issues that we have been directed towards and suggestions have been done by Michael Porter and other theorists. So therefore, we may borrow from the generic strategies, grand strategies, and over and above that, we also do look at our long-term goals and understand that the reason why we are carrying out strategic planning is to gain competitive advantage because we operate within an environment where the industry has got other players. These players are aiming at gaining a larger share of the market out there. We have chosen a strategy and a particular strategy. We then want to say, all right, in the industry, how does that strategy align or relate to the industry life cycle? At what stage are we in our product? Like print media, are we in the decline? Like electronics, are we merging on the rise? Where are we? And wherever we are at, we need to align our strategy and say to ourselves, is it the most appropriate strategy? We then choose a strategy because, as we said in the first tutorial, in any plan, we often have alternatives. And from those alternatives, we perform a cost-benefit analysis and we end up with the best possible option from the alternatives that are available to us. How do we make that choice? We will indicate to you in this module that we make that choice quantitatively. Of course, yes, we are coming on from a qualitative perspective, but we will use some form of scientific method to arrive at the final strategic choice that we require. We then move on into implementation because there's no point in planning without ensuring that that plan may be implemented or is implementable. That's when we will be able to tell the mantle of the whole effort and deliberations within which you engage from environmental analysis to formulation to see if whatever we did is profitable. So yes, when we implement, we must understand that implementation process involves changing the status quo, and we need then to deal with change. And as we implement our strategy, we require some catalytic factors that will help us to move ahead and carry out the implementation with the best possible effectiveness that we may do. And we call these the drivers of strategy implementation. And we will enumerate them, we will discuss them, and having done so, we then move on to continuous improvement, and that's done through control and evaluation. There's no point in sitting back and resting on our laurels and thinking that we are going to succeed when at the most we will find ourselves without any result because we've deviated from our initial plan. So therefore, evaluation and control will ensure that we continuously improve on our strategic implementation methodologies. We then transcend into answering the questions of whether strategic management is only applicable in large corporations, big companies. No, we can use strategic management for any planning process that requires to turn around an organization or give an organization a new direction or start off an organization. And therefore, it is not only with a view to making a profit, but it is with a view of being effective in achieving our mission, in achieving our goals, either long term or short term. We will also want to look at the global perspective because organization is operating within the global village. Therefore, let's recognize that we have got opportunities within the global sphere and not only within the localized market of that particular country. That links us and shows us the structure of the module. If you understand this structure, surely trying to unravel the essence, the reason why we are doing BM3 falls away, because you can see how it flows, you can see how it should be applied, you can see how you should understand it. If you look at that diagram, environmental analysis has been done by all of us in several other modules. So that's revision. Something that may actually stand out there is strategic leadership and corporate governance. Those are the new concepts. You come to formulation. We have dealt with strategies in a number of modules. And of course, to do this module, we have actually done business management too. We dealt with strategies in business management too. So therefore, this is mere revision. The life cycle, you meet it in marketing, and analyzing and choosing might be something that's new. Implementation, yes, that could probably be somewhere where we are, but that's also found within other modules where strategies were formulated and implemented. We may not have spoken about drivers directly and classified them or categorized them or dichotomized them in terms of how we do in business management strategy. But we also have come across that. Evaluation and control, that's a common concept within management. So that is the structure. It is understood, is what we must understand we're doing in this module. We will then move on and touch on long-term goals and generic strategies, where we are saying to ourselves, once we've got our mission and our vision, yes, we are then saying to ourselves, the intention is to position the organization for long-term competitive advantage. That's what we want to do. And we want to create value for customers and our shareholders. And we do that by developing a strategy, which is a lot of hard work, and it requires creative thinking. It does require creative thinking. Just not doing it from there. Another opportunity to have an overview of the process. We look at this schematic view of our goals in association with strategies and putting them into context. You, the manager, as a strategist, are operational in this perspective. In analyzing the environment, you create your SWOT analysis. You need to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, and the opportunities and threats that are in the external environment which you are operating within. And understand that the external changes that take place as well over and above that which you look in your best analysis. The life cycle changes, demand changes, supply changes, quite broad. You are now thinking in 3 dimensions, and you are encapsulating a number of variables as you look at planning for the organization, which is what strategy management is all about. Look at the industry as well, from a macro perspective, micro and market perspective. Once you have done that, you are saying to yourself, you have your vision, you have your mission, you are going to have your strategic goals, and having done that, you formulate your strategy, selecting or being assisted by the generic and the grand, and then, of course, your annual goals are pointers and short-term methods of implementing or tactics of implementing your strategy and therefore you're also guided by your policies as guidelines towards decision making and whatever you do in the organization. And at the end of the day, you come out right with your strategy. And of course, you don't end there. You keep on reviewing, and it is an ongoing process in our management roles. In terms of our long-term goals, and of course, yes, they're determined in line of or in line with the vision. They are derived from the vision, they're also derived from the mission. In table 6.1, you are given differences between long-term strategic goals and short-term goals, which are concepts that we covered in Business Management 1 and 2. Policies will be rules and guidelines that will give us boundaries within which we make decisions. And they are necessary. They are demarcative perspectives that will control the way we think and espouse ideas. By nature, goals must be very clear, realistic, decisive, ensure concerted and coordinated effort of all the units, because remember, in the first tutorial we said that strategic management was integrated. It begs of us to look at all the functional areas and planning and acting in unison and not leaving out anyone else and letting them operate in isolation. And these long-term goals, they must obviously comply to specific requirements, and that requires of them to be very clear to everyone in the organization. There are considerations that we need to have in mind when we are talking about long-term goals. This is an important concept. Are all efforts directed at clearly understood, decisive, attainable overall objectives? If they are, then we are okay. If not, let's review that. Specific objectives of subordinate units may change over time in the heat of operative procedures. That's quite true. The environment is dynamic. In this dynamism, we end up having to change the way we intended to operate previously. These objectives here, as they are being achieved, ensure and guarantee continued viability and vitality of the organization, which is our intention in entering into strategic management. They must be measurable and indicate a time frame. That's very important. And of course, they must be consistent and congruent across functional areas. An example I always give is that if you want to achieve a 20% increase in your profit levels in the organization, marketing might want to increase market share by 10%, operations might want to increase production by 5%, finance may want to reduce costs by 15%. These several goals may not necessarily look like they are heading towards increase in profit, but by nature of the fact that they are coordinated, they become congruent in that they all are aimed at getting to that ultimate goal of increasing our profit level. We said that we perform strategic management to gain competitive advantage, and that is what distinguishes us from and amongst our competitors. And our competitive advantage comes from distinctive competence. We are aware that we had our capabilities, which were converted into core competencies. But of course, these can be imitated by the competitors. We then said, of course, yes, fine, we've had our distinctive strategic position. We then need to attain that primarily through inimitable competencies, which are called distinctive competence. These, in the short term, may not necessarily be imitated. It will be special privileges and technologies or resources that we only have by ourselves. And of course, eventually, the competitors are going to copy this because of the nature of the environment. So let's always plan to have continuous improvement, as we stated in our preamble and summary. If you are going to talk about competitive advantage, there are certain criteria that must be fulfilled. It does have to relate to an attribute with value and relevance for customers. They must perceive it as such. And of course, they should know it is a competitive advantage. It must be sustainable. Take us a long time. There's no point in us having it and it operates for 2 months, 3 months. What then are we going to do? We're always going to go back and look at planning, planning, planning. And we know that this aspect of spending time on planning may be viewed as a dysfunctionality within strategic management, because we say that's one of the reasons why people hate strategic management with a passion. So therefore, let's try and come up with strategies that would be sustainable in terms of them giving us that competitive advantage. And we're basing it on our resources that we've got in the organization, and that should, of course, mean that they become distinctive in nature. When you talk about generic competitive strategies, we are saying to ourselves, yes, Porter does suggest that we deal with cost leadership, differentiation, and focus. Those three are what Porter espoused. Best cost is a hybrid of the first two. So Porter's generic are only three of them. And to understand them from a perspective of their target as well as the competitive advantage derived, focus is targeted at a particular segment. It will have advantages of uniqueness and low cost depending on what we are moving in with in that targeted market. Differentiation has a competitive advantage of uniqueness. Of course, it is industry-wide as well as our cost leadership. It is industry-wide, but it banks on low cost derived from perspectives that helps us, like economies of scale, reduce cost. Best cost provider is a hybrid or infuses differentiation and overall cost leadership, as we did say. And it does operate industry-wide as well, but it has got the best of the two worlds, so to speak. We do move on to our grand strategies. One needs to understand that we do not deal with them in isolation. These complement generic strategies. They are used in conjunction with each other. And they are a comprehensive general approach which guide us in taking actions within the organization. They are classified according to them being or giving rise to external growth, internal growth, or those that we use when we are faced with a decline situation or when we intend to have corporate combinations for one reason or the other. We want to look at how they are related. If you are going to achieve cost leadership, you may want to use any one of those grand strategies. To have cost leadership, you may select to use your integration strategies, whether vertical or horizontal. If you select to use the vertical strategies, you are saying to yourself, forward integration allows you to disintermediate, go straight to your customer. Backward integration as well does help you to get rid of the supply chain extensions that provide you with your inputs, own them, and by so doing, you are cutting down on costs. If you select horizontal integration, you are talking about taking over those that are in the same industry with you. This allows you to enjoy economies of scale, all things being equal, and it will lead you to reducing your costs And as such, ladies and gentlemen, cost leadership is achieved. I will not go through the whole process. It is quite clear, and we did say that this is mere revision arising from previous modules. Our grand strategies are classified or dichotomized, like I said, in terms of growth, decline, and corporate combinations. And we seem like repetitive there. And this is a schematic view of how they all span out and turn out to be. Please refer to Business Management 2 to understand exactly what each one of those is. I often do say to students at this level that if you are presented with a case study and it requires you to identify the strategy being utilized in the case study, please desist from having to scratch your hair off in remembering which one of the great strategies is this, which one of the generic strategies is this. No. You would want to be able to detail what the strategic manager in that case study is doing. In the process of explaining to the examiner what strategy is being adopted in the case study as to advance the business model and achieve the vision, mission, so set by the manager in the case study, it is adequate. You may, by accident or by virtue of knowledge, come across a name that you saw or a word you saw within your study, and then you say, oh, okay, that is a market development strategy. It's a plus, but you should not waste time in trying to memorize those and then saying to yourself that, okay, here's a question. It says, which strategy? Which ones do I know? You write them down, long list, and say, which one is it? It is foolhardy to do that. It is not a good applicative premise. We then want to align the strategy with the industry life cycle. The industry life cycles do happen, and it is through the dynamism in the environment, and we should remember that despite the dynamism, we want to gain competitive advantage. And in this dynamism, we belong to a particular industry and we experience phases differentiated in the progression of time by variables taking place in the environment. So therefore, as we experience these different phases in the development of the industry, we should by all means try and make sure that our strategy aligns with what we are looking at. The industry life cycle is denoted by the stages birth, growth, maturity, and decline. Shakeout is an activity within growth that does happen by accident, and it is imminent that it should happen because when you generate those profits, you will experience heightened competition, so to point out. What gives rise to these phases? There are changes in the industry's growth rate over time, stimulated by various trends within the global economies. And new knowledge as well may result in us having to have a different phase within the industry. The introductory phase, we are talking about experimentation. You want to find the best way of doing things. There's uncertainty in the environment, and there's difficulty in predicting and controlling the variables that are playing out in the environment. In the growth phase, you gain customer acceptance, more customers enter the market, demand is rising, because of that, competition increasing, is increased, that gives rise to shakeout, where level of competition in the industry does, of course, introduce new entrants, and our market share will, of necessity, begin to decline, and this competition may require us to ensure that we use strategies that will retain our competitive advantage, like lowering prices, and that results in price wars. And we need to be tenacious and strong for us to, at the end of the day, withstand the level of competition in there. Maturity is at that level where demand begins to slow down and or may remain constant. We are increasing at a decreasing rate, and of course, you can predict a number of things because through the experiential curve, you've seen a lot of things taking place there. Customers have developed brand loyalty, and at this point, you are talking of barriers to entry that are present due to the long time that you've been within the industry. In the decline phase, customers are decreasing, more products are being made by others, and of course, you react by cutting prices, increasing competition, and of course, those who are not as good go out of that industry. Schematic view of those phases in that diagram there. Of course, we need then to focus on strategies that we may use in emerging industries. I'm just going to use two examples, emerging industries and fragmented industries. Our emerging industries, look up the definition from your textbook, and of course, they do focus on innovation. Examples will be wireless internet, high definition television, online education, and the organic provisioning of food, as well as clothing in the marketplace. There are two issues that we need to look at in this emerging spectrum. How to finance the initial operations until sales revenues take off. And what market segment are you going to focus on? Having done so, what strategies may you use? Try and win the early race and become an industry leader. Of course, yes, you take risks and you become entrepreneurial. Push hard to perfect your skills well before others take over. Of course, form alliances that are going to give you benefit in terms of specialized skills and technological capabilities in the marketplace. Those are only but a few of them. The list of strategies that you can use as an emerging industry does go on. If you're competing in a fragmented industry, this is an industry where you've got a number of operators, too many of them in the same industry, as exemplified by landscaping, real estate development, auto repair industry. Of course, yes. What are your options? Become a low-cost operator, stress on no frills. Of course, yes, this will result in low overheads. Work to achieve high productivity with low-cost labor. Focus on one product or service that you can specialize. Of course, focus on a limited geographical area. There are people that will walk our pets in the morning and or whatever time of the day. If they do serve the whole complex, surely per unit, their cost will be low, but yes, they will maximize on their profits because then that's how it is. They will entrench their presence in the market because there's trust, faith, they are known, and they can even market more. People start talking about, oh, you want your pet? Well, there is that person who can do that for you, and this is the strategy that you may apply when you are in a fragmented industry, so to speak. Let's look at arriving at a choice of a particular strategy. Because yes, we want you to reflect on your internal environmental analysis and the external environmental analysis, where we said that you must produce an internal factor evaluation matrix and an external factor evaluation matrix. In short, what we said there was identify your strengths and weaknesses in the internal factor evaluation metrics, select a number of them, and those should then be apportioned a weight, apportion them a weight, and once you've given them a weight, you score them as well. Having scored them, you multiply the weight by the score, you sum up the result. If the total score is above 3, it means that internally you are pretty strong. If it's below 3, you know that there are things that you need to do. In the same light, for your external factors, do the same. Score each factor between 1 to 5 on a scale of 1 to 5 in terms of it assisting you to achieve your objectives, as well as scoring your threats in that perspective. And then you weight each one of them, multiply the score by the weight, sum up that, and you arrive at a total score, which will indicate whether you are able to deal with the external environment effectively or not, depending on the factor you have for the score that you arrive at. Keep those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and those will assist you in having to select a particular strategy. You may then want to apply any one of these three: SWOT metrics, space metrics, and the grand strategy metrics, to analyze your SWOT perspectives within the external and internal environment, and then, of course, arrive at the final choice using the quantitative strategic planning metrics, the QSPM. Let's see how they span out. This is a schematic view of the fact that you may use any one of the SWOT analysis, space metrics, and grand strategy metrics to then, with one of them, perform your QSPM and select or choose a particular strategy that suits the situation. The SWOT analysis requires you to identify your strengths, your weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then you can combine under the strength, opportunity strategies, SO strategies, see which strength and opportunity may go together. For example, in the SO strategies box, we do see introducing Africa to movies. They've taken strength number 2, positive cash flow, and combined with opportunity number 1, opening economies in sub-Saharan Africa. If you have money, you can afford to move asunder and explore other markets. That's how the SWOT analysis will be used to arrive at a possible strategy. And the WO is the weakness opportunities strategy, where you combine a weakness and an opportunity to see what you can. And you're looking at possible merger with African movie theaters and African movies. Weakness 4, which says losses in the Western Cape and Mpumalanga, and opportunity 1, opening economies in sub-Saharan Africa. If you're experiencing losses in Mpumalanga, move away from there and go into these opening economies, hoping that they are making some good money, or their economies are strong enough to get there. That's the SWOT metrics. That's the SWOT metrics, and that's how you use it. How do you use the space metrics? You've got 4 axes, or 4 factors on the y-axis, 2 on the y-axis and 2 on the x-axis. On the y-axis, you've got financial strength, environmental stability. You would categorize your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in terms of which ones give you financial strength. You score them, average them, and arrive at a final score. You then look at which one of them gives you environmental stability. You score them, average them, and arrive at a score. Once you've got a negative score and a positive score, sum them together, and see the resultant score. Say the resultant score was +2. You then go to the x-axis. Look at competitive advantage. Which ones of those SWOT factors give you competitive advantage? On a scale of 1 to 6, 1 being the strongest, 6 being the weakest, score them, sum them up, average them, arrive at a score. Look at the ones that give you industry strength. Score them 1 to 6, 1 being the weakest, 6 being the strongest. Then, of course, average them off and arrive at a score, add the x-axis, and say you come up with +4. So +4 and +2 get you into the aggressive category of strategies to select from. And your textbook tells you which ones are aggressive. It tells you which ones are aggressive in that chapter 9 there. That's your space matrix. Your grand strategy matrix says to you, you want to look at market growth and competitive position. If you've got rapid market growth and you've got a strong competitive position, use quadrant 1 strategies. If you've got strong competitive position and a slow market growth situation, use quadrant 4 strategies. And the process does span out in that perspective. You then get to the QSPM, where you say, all right, according to my SWOT analysis, I decided that I was going to move into sub-Saharan Africa. I am choosing to either touch on Zimbabwe or touch on Namibia. And you want to have alliances with the kind industry in that area. All right. Detail your opportunities and threats, strengths and weaknesses. Give them a weight in terms of how they assist you to achieve your objective. And look at their attractiveness score. For instance, if you do look at opening economies in sub-Saharan Africa, the first opportunity there, it's got a weight of 0.4 on a scale of 0 to 1. Its attractiveness score on a scale of 1 to 5 is 1 for Zimbabwe. Because yes, it's an opening economy, but the economy is not as good. You're looking at Namibia. Yes, it is an opening economy and the economy is stable, fairly stable. That's why we're scoring it 3 out of 5. We've gone in that state with every one of those, and then we multiply the weight by the attractiveness score, as in 0.4 multiplied by 1. Total attractiveness score is 0.4 for Zimbabwe, and for Namibia, it is 3 multiplied by 0.4, which is 1.2. You then add up your total attractiveness scores. For Zimbabwe, it becomes 3.3, and for Namibia, it is 5.35. So, ladies and gentlemen, which strategy do you select? You want to have a joint venture with Namibia. Hooray! That is a quantitative method of convincing the board that that's what you're going to do. Let's now look at implementing the strategy now that we have selected a strategy. Selected one, let's implement it. We would only be able to understand the worth of a strategy if it can be implemented. And of course, We are putting the strategy into action. This phase is important in the whole process, and we require a committed workforce. Very important. We also need the drivers to implementation, which we did mention in our preamble or introduction. If we are going to implement anything, it means we are going to change the status quo. We are going to change the existing situation. Because this change is imminent, then it calls upon us to see how we can manage change. What is strategy implementation? It's the process that turns plans into series of action tasks, ensures that these tasks are executed in such a way that the objectives of the strategic plan are achieved. That's implementation. It is obviously different from formulation, and our textbooks does tell us that the differences arise from particular points. There are surely problems when implementing strategies that we're going to see. The coordination aspect of implementation process may give us a problem if it is not effective. Leadership and direction of managers are inadequate. Goals are not well defined, we don't know what we're doing, and they're not understood by employees. Formulators are not implementers, difficult situation. But we know that we did select a strategy champion. The champion was an external person, that's why we call them a non-stranger. Let them work with people within the organization so that even when they are gone and we have got the strategy document and we are ready to implement, there are people in the organization who were working together with the champion who understand the reasons why they said what should be done is going to be done. Key changes and responsibilities in employees are not clearly defined. People love the status quo. People don't love to be, shifted from their comfort zones. So yes, it can be a barrier. There's also vision barriers, management barriers, resource barriers, and people barriers. Let's see how these are explained in a diagram. I don't see that well, but of course, it is that we envision strategies to a very less extent, and in the management barrier, we're saying that we spend very little time in planning on strategies. Resource barriers that we don't allocate resources accordingly, and the barrier is that they don't seem to understand what we want to do. They don't seem to understand what we want to do. All right. As we spoke about change, and we said it was imminent when we implement strategies, it then says to us that the process is not straightforward. It is complicated because we are going to have aspects of change management coming into place, and we need to manage the resistance to change. Employees themselves may make it difficult for us to implement the change. Hence, the need to manage the whole process, so to say. Let's look at the key factors that impact on change management, or that give rise to the factor of change coming through. If there is dissatisfaction with the present strategy, we are going to encounter aspects of change, and there is need for us to change. The vision of a better alternative in the future also does require us to change. If we have a strategy for implementing the change, true to book, that is going to be a good thing. And let's recognize that there's going to be a resistance to change. And then we need to manage that change as we progress within the organization, where we understand the change, know the source of that change, see what is going to be changed, and how we're going to manage that change. We then need to understand the types of strategic change. There is a change that is called adaptation, where the current organizational setting is able to accommodate incremental change. Then yes, we just need to adapt the organizational processes to what is happening in the environment. Reconstruction. The current organizational setting requires us to implement a new strategy. Therefore, we have got to shake the organization a bit and change some things, hence the reconstruction. Evolution. It does involve fundamental changes in the way the organization has to deal with the situation, but it does happen over time. Unlike adaptation, this will take a long time. Of course, if we do not give it enough or a comfortable speed, we may find ourselves going into strategic drift where environmental factor change overtakes the implementation process. So we need to be careful about that. Revolution. This involves fundamental changes as a result of sudden and fast changing conditions. That's sudden, that's response to a crisis. We then need to be revolutionary rather than us taking time. We need to be immediate in implementing that. And that's an important section. What issues do we encounter? It could be a question of time. How quickly must we get the result? How quickly must we implement the change? The scope. What exactly are we changing? How many things are we changing? It becomes an issue. Diversity. What is the level of homogeneity in the organization? Is everyone going to understand everyone else? Do we all take equally to change? That will be an issue. Capacity. Do you have the capacity in terms of resources that you need to effect the change? If not, tough luck. If you do, hooray, you are going to get there. Readiness. Are the employees ready for change? How was your communication spread? Did you communicate as you went through the process? Do they understand what you communicated? Capability. Do those employees, as well as management, have the ability to implement the change? Those are the issues. Let's look at the drivers that we mentioned, and we said we require us to be assisted in implementing change. It is a big challenge, we know that, so we need to have good leadership, a good culture that fits with our strategy, a reward system that's motivational, an organizational structure that's enabling and allocating resources efficiently to guarantee effectiveness. Not only that, we also require instruments. Over and above the drivers, we must have instruments that we use in the process of implementation. Short-term objectives are how we do what we do. Functional tactics will be a way of performing what we're doing in the best possible way to maneuver the process to fruition. And policies will be the guidelines that assist us to make decisions faster, uniformly, and in a standardized way. Leadership is a driver. Yes, we do require good leadership, and we require a strategic leader. They must have an ability to anticipate, envision, maintain flexibility, and empower others to create strategic change as necessitated by the dictates of our goals at that point. For us to succeed, we do need to appreciate the fact that how many of these managers and these leaders are able to do it correctly, are able to have those qualities that we are talking about. What makes a leader? Ability to create a vision, to communicate that vision, to make a commitment, to empower, delegate, make decisions continuously, and create trust. It therefore means that our leaders need to have a high degree of emotional intelligence. What does this entail? What are the aspects of emotional intelligence? It entails them being aware of themselves, knowing their strengths and weaknesses, when to apply them and when not to, and how they can convert their weaknesses into strengths or use facets in the environment to camouflage their weaknesses. Self-regulation. They understand when they shout too high that they've shouted too high. They understand that when they motivate people, the motivation is turned into driving slaves. They should be regulating themselves. Motivation. They need to have self-motivation themselves, not to be persuaded by someone else. And that constitutes emotional intelligence. Empathy. Do they sympathize with others? Do they place themselves in other people's circumstances? Not necessarily sympathize, but empathize. That they understand the feelings of the next door person, they understand the feelings of the fellow managers, feelings of their subordinates, and act accordingly in terms of maintaining a good interpersonal relationship, which brings us to social skills. When they relate, how well do they relate? If they do this, and if this is the embodiment of our strategic leader, then we may say to ourselves, yes, we are going to achieve our mission and our vision, and our strategy is going to be implemented correctly. Very important. What do these leaders do? They develop a vision or the direction that we intend to take. They communicate with everyone. They inspire and motivate. They design a reward system that's good and a good structure that enables us to operate efficiently and effectively. They develop and maintain a good culture that is aligned to the strategy to ensure that we succeed. And they to guarantee and ensure that we've got good corporate governance principles that will help us to achieve our objectives within the good dictates. You need to match the leadership styles with particular strategies. If you do look at the life cycle example, at birth, you might need in the introductory stage of the industry life cycle, you need a risk taker, someone that is able to experiment, find new ways of doing things, quickly get you there by discovery. And when you've got rapid growth, you need a caretaker, someone that is going to manage the upheavals very well. And of course, in maturity, you need a sage, someone that is going to diagnose and say, why are we stagnating? Why are we going at a slower pace? And offer you a solution. When you're in decline, it's someone that's been able to handle the issues intricately and mask them to ensure that we do not feel the impact of the decline to a large negative extent. We need the culture as a driver in the organization. And this culture concept refers to the way we do things in the organization. Stories, legends, and traditions will be part and parcel of how culture is defined and how culture manifests itself in our organizations. If it is the right culture, it will give us a competitive advantage. But if it is not, then of course we may not benefit from it. As a driver, it must be identified with us, it must be unique, and it must define our personality. It details our beliefs, how we envision the objectives, and it does serve as a valuable driver as it simplifies the strategy that we are going to implement and the efforts that we apply to implementing that strategy. Our values will be the fundamental of our cultures, and it's of course what I want to say there is that you, the leader, the manager, is the person that shapes the culture in the organization. It is your duty. It is your product. It is you who determines that result in terms of what exactly comes out of the culture. Reward systems. These are also an important aspect as drivers towards strategy. They're defined as the umbrella, or they are seen as the umbrella term for the different components considered in performance evaluation and the assignment of monetary and non-monetary rewards to your participants. You're not only rewarding top managers, you are rewarding everyone in the organization. What type of rewards do you come across? There are share options. There is also a share option plan. Restricted share plan, golden handcuff, golden parachutes, cash bonuses, profit sharing. It is indicated that, or rumor has it, that one of the executives in one of the SOEs was given 30 million as an exit package. Which one of those is that? And this is very much common within your SOEs to get that happen. Public sector, it happens quite a lot. Know those reward systems. Take time to define them. Take time to find examples. Understand them in detail. Let's look at our structural drivers. Organizational design and resource allocation will imply structural drivers for strategic implementation. Of course, your short-term goals, functional tactics and policies will be your good instruments in implementing your strategy. What is the role of organizational design in strategic implementation? We may want to explain this when we look at the concept of structure following strategy. We've got our strategy and we then say to ourselves, all right, what is the best structure that can assist us to achieve this strategy? That's why we're saying we design the structure after the strategy has been formulated. It is important to understand that these structures will evolve with time. They will change with time. And as they do change, we must always align them to making them the best that can afford us a competitive advantage in terms of where we stand, our position. There is no fixed recipe in terms of aligning or matching structure to strategy. No one size fits all. It's all situational, it's contingent. It is situational, it is contingent. Let's understand that and make efforts to understanding how we do, and we can be guided by components on page 334 to do that. Allocation of resources. Yes, we don't just allocate them. Say, I feel like giving this department so much and so on and so on. No, we do allocate resources in view of the fact that there is a certain task to be performed in a particular functional area, and the resources that are required there would be the following. And having done so, then that becomes a good way of allocating resources. With our tangibles, intangibles, and of course, let's understand that these resources are very scarce. Human resources are also very important today. If you select a good set of individuals, these will assist you in achieving your objectives, because it is the human resource that is able to mobilize and commandeer all the other inanimate resources to enable you to achieve your objectives. It is the entrepreneurial component. It knows the appropriate ratios in which you can mix your resources to ensure that the outcome is the best ever. Yes, we've spoken about the alignment. If you do allocate too few resources, you slow down the implementation. If you allocate too many resources, you are wasting. And this wastefulness will not improve your bottom line. Let's look at our short-term goals as an instrument for strategy implementation. We have broken down the long-term goals into short-term goals for better understanding, because these help us to establish priorities within the organization. They help us to monitor progress. We can link them to rewards. We can use them as checkpoints as we proceed. They can be used as milestones as we do that. Obviously, we're translating them from long-term goals. And these come from the mission. The mission will come from the vision. And that hierarchy should be appreciated. How do we view a well-formulated objective? It entails the concept of who is responsible, in which focus area, what action they need to take, and of course, how is it going to be measured, because in what duration. We at times have to use the balanced scorecard. It's a very good instrument in setting goals. And we do say that as a planning tool, it is also a control tool, because our planning tools are our control tools. It is what we plan that we are checking in terms of controlling evaluation, if at all we did succeed. There are 4 pillars of the balanced scorecard, or 4 components: the financial, internal business, learning and growth, as well as our customers. When we setting goals, let's be guided by the questions that are entailed in those boxes. To succeed financially, how should we appear to our shareholders? When you answer that question, you are setting a financial goal. Under internal business, we say to satisfy the shareholders and customers, what business process must we excel at? Answer that question, you are going to set a goal. To achieve our vision, how will we sustain our ability to change and improve? That will give you a learning and growth objective. To achieve our vision, how should we appear to our customers? That will give you a customer-related, customer-centered objective. That's how we use the balanced scorecard ladies and gentlemen, important component. Of course, yes, policies as an instrument are also very important, and we did say they are the guidelines which we use to direct our decision making in the organization, and they need to support the chosen strategy that we have elected to pursue. Continuous improvement and evaluation. It is a new phase that we are going to see, and it's the last phase in the environmental process of strategic implementation. But of course, if we are talking about a stable environment, it becomes the last phase. But if you are talking about a dynamic environment, we do this at each and every stage. We need to review the strategy continuously so that we do remain competitive and adjust where need be. And in terms of us controlling, we are very clear it is part and parcel of the process. It does differ from the traditional management control as this looks. It does look, and we do it all the time, as opposed to we've done everything, how well did we do it? What if we made a mistake at the first stage? What are the types of strategic control? The premise control. This focuses on our assumptions that we made when we were formulating the strategy. Surveillance. We are talking about as we operate, what things are taking place, and this will guarantee that we align our implementation to our initial strategy. Special alerts. These will look at unexpected events that arise as we implement our strategy. And of course, implementation control, it is the type of control we must exercise as we implement and as we look at the strategy unfolding. It is sometimes, of course, related to operational control. It relates to operational control. We did say that the balance scorecard is a planning tool as well as it being a control tool. And it does have those four perspectives. Very important, like I said. Financial, customer, internal processes, learning and growth. And we may want to look at an example of the cause and effect relationship that happens within strategy implementation. We have dealt with that diagram. We are aware on how we create objectives from answering the questions in the box. And it is these objectives now that we are looking at and saying, did we achieve the financial objective? Did we achieve the internal business process objective? That is what we are now doing. We're not setting the objective, but we are saying to ourselves, did we? We may want to say to ourselves, there is a desired return on capital employed level that we want to achieve. That's our financial perspective at the top. Return on capital employed that we want to achieve. Let's see how it's integrated. We start from the learning and growth perspective, and we deal with the employees that we have, their capabilities, their abilities, their core competencies, and their distinctive competencies. As they operate within the organization, we move into the internal business process. Are they on time when they deliver? Do they take cognizance of process cycle time, minimize the time taken, and go to market maintaining the competitive advantage? If they do so, this gives rise to customer loyalty. And customer loyalty is a customer perspective. Once the customer is loyal, repetitive buying takes place, and we are guaranteed of achieving our return on capital employed. That is the relationship that is there. That's the cause and effect that we find in our balanced scorecard perspective usage. Understand that. And yes, of course, we've seen all that it does also help us to translate the vision, communicate and link our strategy information in planning for the business and giving feedback and learning. All those are developments from the balanced scorecard per se. And then we do now look at not-for-profit organizations where we all now say yes. We also need to use strategic management to ensure that they also are effective in delivering what they need to deliver. And we're looking at organizations like churches, schools, museums, charities, which are all not-for-profit. They also need to be able to use strategy to be effective in getting to achieving that which they have to achieve. It is important. It does not limit us to only applying it to those organizations that are for profit. What are the benefits of strategic management concepts and techniques within these organizations? They are enumerated in this slide, and you should be able to understand that these organizations can benefit from what these are. They should benefit from what these are. And then we look at the global perspective and say to ourselves, yes, we operate in a global village, and we should be able to be competitive as well, irrespective of that. It does not mean that it is us in South Africa not being aware of what's happening in America. We can't sell our products in there. Yes, we should be able to do that without any hindrance at all. That is, if we have to understand the environment before we can move in. We may want to decide and make a decision in terms of whether we approach it from a global perspective or a local perspective. And we can orient ourselves, approach it from an ethnocentric perspective, polycentric, regional-centric, or geocentric per se. Understand what those terms mean, and we will surely look at which strategies to use when we enter a global market. We may use any one of international strategy, multi-domestic, global, and transnational. What are our modes of entry into the global market? You can import and export, license someone, franchise, strategic alliances can be formed, or we can look at wholly owning a foreign subsidiary. Ladies and gentlemen, all the best for the examination. Any questions? I hope the summary was well understood. I do see that I still have got 13 people in attendance. Are there any questions, or we understand the whole perspective very well, and therefore no need for questions? You are so quiet, ladies and gentlemen. What's happening? Palisa says that, are there any examples of previous exam questions we can maybe attempt? Yes, Palisa. If you go on to eLearn, you've got past papers for the three past sittings. That is 2016 first semester, 2016 second semester, and 2015 second semester. Yes, you've got a lot of examination questions that you can draw from. And at the moment, like I did say, we've got the 2016 October paper. Yes, Farah, you're welcome. Please don't rush to, and for Saturday activities, we have an examination coming. Let's focus. I can see some of you are bidding me farewell, intending to go for that clubbing binge. Shamika says, what is the ratio of theory and application do we need to write in the examination? Shamika, you know what? Everything is application. At this level, whatever concept you are going to define, apply it to an example that exists within your understanding of the management realm. Do not just regurgitate theory. Show the examiner you understand. Oh, Shamika says it's too early for clubbing. Good principle, good principle. Some of us, it doesn't exist. So yes, feel very free. Don't be depressed by having to, or stressed by having to think about what level of application. Everything is application. Take it from that perspective. How many case studies will we most likely get? Shamika, once more, I'm not aware how many you will get. We've seen exams with one case study, we've seen some with two, some have got three, but remember, you've got 3 hours. You've got 3 hours. Remember, you're well studied, you're well prepared, and look at your case study. No matter how much it is, it has been made to be articulated within the 3 hours. Relax, focus, read through the case study, read through the question, see what's required, extract, and move on. I understand why you're asking that question. It is from a perspective where you say, all right, in one past paper I saw 2 case studies. Gee whiskers, that's a lot of content to go through to be able to answer questions. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I understand how you feel when you are in the examination situation. I understand that very well. And some of it is exacerbated by the fact that we are not well prepared. If you are well prepared, my advice is you need to take a relaxed stance and say, I know my theory. I can apply it anyway. In the same light as you will apply for a job. You don't know what's coming, you have an idea of what's coming, but exactly what tasks and the nature of the tasks that you'll be performing, you may not necessarily be privy to them. You take each day as it comes, each month as it comes, each year as it comes, and you do your best in terms of using the knowledge you have acquired throughout your education and solve the problems as best as you can. In the same light, go for the examination with that type of spirit. Say to yourself, I know what I need to do. I know my theory. When I come across a case study, I'll look at my theory and say, all right, it is talking about, is, for example, the question paper in October last year, types of change. All right, I know them. Adaptation, revolutionary, evolutionary, and reconstruction. And I can define all the four. All right, what is the question say? What does it want me to do with those four? And then you go ahead and do to those four as is indicated in the case study. That's the application, Shamika. Okay, that's a very good question that you asked. It's not necessarily that you might have been trying your luck. Well, we all operate from the same perspective. I genuinely do not know what's in the exam. And yes, I can give you tips. I can guide you in getting through the exam in a very good way. Palisa says, are there any unimportant chapters, so to speak, like not-for-profit? Palisa, everything is important. But you know what? When you went through with me the way I was going, yes, this is important. I'm deriving as well from the examination style of this examiner. I've looked at the past papers and said to myself, okay, what can I, you know, that kind of thing. Of course, we are also aware that sometimes questions are never repeated. You're always going to get a new question. But the point is that if we use the maxim of assessments and say we were assessed in the first 5 chapters and competency can be declared, what do we look at? Maybe, you know, we're going to have concentration of assessment in the chapter 6 to chapter 15 type of spectrum. So therefore, I know chapter 1 to 5 already. I'm comfortable with it. I did deal with it in the assignment. But if I look at chapter 6 to 15, chapter 6, 7, 8, 9, I know them from marketing 2. I know them from BM2. Why should I worry about strategies? Whatever question comes in terms of that, I know the theory already. So I'll look at drivers. Globalization, maybe I've done international Africa marketing, aspects of marketing too as well. Yes, you know, it's things that I am aware of already. Try and study with a view of integrating your modules, see which concepts are common to modules, and say to yourself, you know what, I know this. I know this. Let me just look at the perspective or the angle from which it is looked at in this module. But deep down, be confident that it is the same concept. In that event, do not even think about, you know, which ones are important. All of them are important. But it's a question of, you know what, I know this already. I know this already. And you know 60% of the content in that textbook. Shamika, I acknowledge your acknowledgement. Thank you, Palisa. We are on the same perspective. Yes, Kylie, it is a view that could assist us to get through the examination. By the way, guys, I've often said Management 3 is a distinction module. Failing it is very difficult. Very difficult. It is an application module. Even if you do not appear to remember the points from your theory, and you look at the case study, and it says to you, how did the manager manage change in this case study. Hello? Hello, guys? Hello? You need to know the ways of managing change. The question is very specific. It is saying to you, how does the manager in this case study manage change? Surely, would you want to scratch your head and pull off the hair and have a bald head like mine by wanting to remember anything from the textbook? Let us walk tall, square shouldered, and positive. It's a distinction module. We will all pass, definitely. I am aware of that, and I know that. But of course, we will discuss and become more confident once you have seen the assignment results. Sometimes they get to be disappointing because some people don't put effort in, that 20%. But I always advise, if you are still studying, consider your assignment as a very good contributor to your final exam. Yes, Palisa, is true. It's application and application. But we cannot divorce it from theory. We need to know what we're doing for us to be able to apply. We need to know what we're doing for us to be able to apply. It is not a regurgitation of theory, but we need to allude to the theory for us to be able to apply the theory. The theory gives structure to our answer. It gives structure to our response in the examination. It does that. Some people have not been participating at all. I hope that, Andrea, you've been quiet as usual. Yes. Nelson, I haven't heard from you. I hope you're still alive. Nosipo, yes, I've seen you typing, but I didn't see your question coming through. Alisa is very active. Tony, where are you? It's fine. Feel free, guys. It's our forum, and let's enjoy it. You're welcome, Palisa. That's the way to go about it. What, Kaylee? What's on lifting, ma'am? Okay, yes, I do understand. I do understand. And remember, you owe me that distinction. You owe me that distinction, young lady. You promised. Ladies and gentlemen, as you move through your study process, understand that we are here to support you. We're here to support you. If you have any question, post it on the group forum. I will go there from time to time and give guidance. Some of us will also assist you in unlocking the wisdom, and you may also want to email academic undergraduate at immgsm.ac.za. It assists us as we move along. And over and above that, the IMM does provide you with a myriad of support mechanisms. If we should be aware, at the moment, weekend workshops are taking place. You can attend those. There's one before the assignment, and there are 4 before the examination. Some people opt for daytime tutorials over 10 weeks or 13 weeks. Some people opt for evening tutorials. Some opt for Saturday tutorials. All those are support mechanisms. You're not on your own out there. We know it is uncomfortable sometimes. We don't have anyone to bounce off stuff. bounce that off, so to speak. I do understand that definitely we are there for you. We are there for you. Send the queries, ask the questions. We will be able to assist you, plan for the examination, and be effective. You are in third year, you are exit students. We want you to be comfortable and say to ourselves, you know what, I did study with the IMM. Yes, I did get support, and I would go ahead and do my postgraduate honors qualification with them. It's a good thing to do that, well knowing that you will still have that support that is provided. If you don't ask, you will never know that you have a question. And therefore, in summary, that is our content. Our approach to the examination is an application approach. Show examiner you understand your theory, and show the examiner you are able to apply that theory to a given scenario. You're able to apply the theory to a real life situation and show the examiner that you are competent at NQF level 7. Amass your theory, that's to prepare you for the examination. Use the slides on the group forum to summarize the chapters. And ask questions when you don't understand concepts. And once more, all the best for the examination. You don't need luck, you know what you're doing. The examination is 3 hours. Take it easy. Use the 3 hours. Know your examination venue. Plan your route. Get there in time. Be prepared. Thanks, Palisa Chairs. Have a good one. You're welcome to post on the group. Thanks, Shamika. Have a good one. Cheers, Farah. Cheers, Katie. Bye-bye. Yes, no, super. What I wanted to know was, when do you include shakeout in the life cycle? I notice it's always growth, maturity, etc. Shakeout is not a phase. It is an event that takes place in the growth phase. It is not a phase, no, super. It is an event which takes place. We just mentioned because it is worth paying attention to as a strategic manager, to understand that when sales increase, profits are being made, new entrants come into the industry, it's hectic. And that hectic perspective shakes us and shakes out some people who are unable to be competitive in that perspective. Wonderful question. I always knew you had a question, and I was wondering where that question was and when it was going to come. Thank you, Nosipo. Remember, if questions crop up as you go through, do email me, or us rather, on academic ug.immgsm.ac.za. Please feel free. feel free to do that. Welcome. I am waiting for the questions as I see typing. I'm sure those of you that have remained don't do any clubbing at all. Safe assumption to say all that have gone are rushing to go clubbing, even if they did say that it wasn't time. Will we get access to everyone else questions? Yes, Kaylee, you do. You do. You can view everyone's questions and view everyone's answers. You do, Kaylee. Thank you. Enjoy. Nice weekend. Cheers, Kaylee. Bye bye. I'm waiting for Nosipo to get through it. Typing.